Hello, everyone, and welcome to my TED Talk. Today, we're going to be looking at leading by serving and how individuals can become servant leaders, as well as what I've learned throughout my course here at USF. There are a ton of different aspects of servant leadership, but today we're going to look at the three that I think are most important. First one is servant leaders serve others first. The second is servant leaders create an environment for growth. And the third one is servant leaders are vulnerable. So looking at the first one, servant leaders serve first. Robert K. Greenleaf wrote a book called Servant Leadership, A Journey into the Nature of Legitimate Power and Greatness in 2002. He stated that the servant leader is servant first. You can take this in a few different ways. A servant leader is a servant first because he has to first learn how to serve before he can be a true servant leader, or by the actual how it's written, a servant leader is first a servant before he's a leader. He's always going to serve others before anything else in his life. Serve others first. You have to seek joy in serving others. If you don't enjoy serving and serving others, then you're not going to be able to serve first. And if you're not able to serve first, I don't think you can be a servant leader. As well as if you don't find joy in serving others, you're not going to want to continue to serve others. To serve first, you have to put the aspirations of others ahead of your own. It's a very difficult task to say that their aspirations are better than mine, but to be a servant leader, you have to understand to put others ahead of your own, to put others' needs, others' wants ahead of your own wants and needs, because that's who you are, because you are a servant leader, because you want the best for others ahead of what's best for you. Wilkes wrote a book called Jesus on Leadership, Timeless Wisdom on Servant Leadership in 1998. He stated that servant leaders give up personal rights to find greatness in service to others. This one really kind of stands out to me because it's hard to understand that giving up personal rights can include finding greatness in service to others. To be a servant leader, you have to find that greatness in service, that joy in service to serve others. You have to give up your own personal needs, your wants, to not only serve others, but find greatness in service to others. As well, to serve first, you have to care. If you don't care about serving, if you don't care about the institution you're serving, if you don't care about others, you're not going to want to serve first. So I think caring is a huge part of serving first. The second aspect was creating a growth environment. Greenleaf in his book also stated that servant leaders are in the business of growing people, people who are stronger, healthier, more autonomous, more self-reliant, more competent. Servant leaders want to better people, to better individuals. By creating a growth environment, they grow people. They allow people to be the best of who they are. Creating a growth environment entails making individuals' goals and aspirations a priority. It's about listening to what they need, what they want, and what their goals are, and understanding how to serve them to find their goals, to better themselves, and to have a growing environment around them. Yep, to create a growth environment, you have to allow for individuals to be heard. If you're not able to listen to those individuals, and those individuals aren't able to tell you what they want to do, you're not going to truly be able to create a growth environment around them. Greenleaf also stated that the people are the institution. If you're creating a growth environment around the people, you're also creating a growth environment within the institution, within the organization that they're in. So you're not only growing individuals, but you're growing the institution as a whole. The third aspect we're going to look at is vulnerability, being able to be vulnerable. So to be vulnerable, servant leaders seek accountability relationships. Those relationships are defined by sharing vulnerability and receiving support and being held accountable. And to be in those accountability relationships, you have to be open-minded, to be able to listen to what others think and be like, okay, I understand this and this is how I'm going to address this, as well as being able to take that information and be like, okay, I'm bad at this. Here's what I'm doing to work on that. I'm sorry I did this. I'm sorry I lacked in this area, but I am doing this to work on it. Vulnerability builds relationships. Vulnerability brings people closer. It allows for people to serve others better, and it allows people to build better relationships due to vulnerability, due to being close because of that vulnerability that you've established. It also creates an open environment. If you're vulnerable, it allows people to talk more openly and talk about things that aren't the best or aren't great. It allows you to talk about issues within organizations and how to fix them. It allows you to talk about issues within relationships and how to fix them. Vulnerability and being able to be vulnerable as a servant leader brews a trusting culture and a trusting team. If you're vulnerable with people, they trust you more. They understand that they understand that you see the wrongs that are there and that you have a plan to fix them. Blanchard and Hodges wrote a book in 2003 called The Servant Leader: Transforming Your Heart, Head, and Hands. In that book, he stated, "We are all vulnerable. We all fall short. Don't be afraid to share your vulnerability. It's one of the most powerful things you can do to build a team, to build a relationship with people you're leading." I think this is huge. Vulnerability is a thing that is so looked down upon in this time, this day and age, that people don't realize how great vulnerability can be, how beneficial vulnerability can be to building teams, building relationships with the people, not just that you're leading, but people in general. When it comes to an organization, it's not just being vulnerable about everything. It's about sharing task-relevant information and struggles that you're working on as a leader. Looking at an organization, you want to say, hey, this is the things that we're struggling with, and as a leader, this is what I'm working on to make that better, to fix that issue. Another great thing would be an open door policy. Is that vulnerability allows people to come in and talk about the issues within the organization, or within their daily lives, within your own relationships, and talk about it and sit there and say, hey, this is wrong, this is what needs to be fixed, and how to actually fix it. So in conclusion, what can I glean from this? What can I glean from servant leadership? It's to care. It's to care about the institution and the people. Greenleaf stated it great. The most important qualification for trustees should be that they care for the institution, which means that they care for all the people the institution touches, and that they are determined to make their caring count. We saw earlier in one of his quotes that said the people are the institution. So not only care for the institution, but you care for the people within the institution, as well as the people the institution touches. To serve the others, you have to be able to care about them, to care about what you're doing and how you're doing it. Servant leaders have to be deliberate in your actions of service. Personally, I'm bad at this. Sometimes I walk out my door and I'm so focused on myself that I'm not looking to serve others. I'm so focused on how I need to address the day that I'm not saying, how can I serve others? How can I be better with service to others? How can I make others better? Another thing is vulnerability is not a weakness. It's looked at a weakness in this day and age, but it's not. For building relationships, for building anything, vulnerability is not a weakness. It's actually a strength. Vulnerability is great when it's building teams, when it's building relationships. The last thing is servant leadership can create success in more than one way. It can create success within relationships, within organizations. Servant leaders serve others so that those others can continue to serve. And it just kind of brews that service mentality. Here are my references, and thank you for coming to my TED Talk.